Okay, well, looks like we're live. Welcome everyone to the Coaching to Flourish podcast. I am your host, Raj Anderson, Executive Life Coach and Coach Assessor. I'm here with John Andrew Williams, who is the founder of Coach Training EDU. And we are here for part 2 of our demo with Heather Davis. And you don't want to miss this one. So Heather, do you want to do a quick intro for anyone that might have missed last week?
Yes. So I'm Heather. I graduated Coach Training EDU in December of 2023. So pretty recently, and I am working my way towards becoming a life, spirituality, and mindset coach, as well as health and wellness, adding that on. But I live in Bangor, Maine, and I just moved here about 6 months ago from Austin, Texas. So it's beautiful out, and I'm really grateful to be here. Last week was really fun. So excited to dive in again today.
Thank you, Heather. And we're grateful to have you here. And I'm going to hand over to John because I know he's going to want to get into this one.
Yeah, we should just play the recording. I feel like we should just jump in and play it because we always run out of time. So we might want to start more towards the end. And I know that we left at a cliffhanger. And my computer, unfortunately, did not save the minute mark that cliffhanger was due to software updates and all those fun things that have been happening, seems like the last 2 weeks. So I think I have an idea. I'm going to play it and then we'll just go from there. But I want to skip to the end as quick as possible. I know, Heather, you said this had an impact on your life. I want to make sure we have time to get to that before anything else as well, too. So I'm not going to try to talk too much.
Feels
Here we go.
I'm also an Enneagram 3, and I don't know if that helps, but I'm gonna.
All right, hold on. We already got to that part. Yeah, I think I need to reshare it with the computer sound, right? Yeah, there we go. Now I know how to do this. Okay. That was the Enneagram question. Here we go.
She, because I am,
Here it is.
or even like, yeah, my workouts and running, like I'm involved with this big fitness community and everything. So I don't know. Yeah, I've definitely recognized that I tend to like attach my value, my worth, my pride, a sense of confidence in myself and like what I'm producing or giving to people or accomplishing, especially if I'm accomplishing something that in some way benefits another person. And I know that I've always had a hard time like telling people when I need help. You know, I actually had a professional coach one time that called that out in me. Because I told her, you know, my manager keeps asking me how they can help me, and I never know what to say. And she's like, why don't you know how to answer that question? And I'm like, that's actually a really good question. Why can't I tell people, like, if they ask me, how can I support you or how can I help you? Why is that question so hard for me to answer? And I think too, I'd never want to be a burden to anyone. I never want to ask for anything. I think I grew up in a family that was in that position. I grew up in a very poor family, low income family, and I know what it feels like to feel like a charity case a little bit. And it's like, I remember I've said this in the past. I try not to say it anymore, but like, I never want to feel that way again, or like I never want to be in that position again. Like I want to be the person to be helping and giving and, you know, being generous to others with my time and talent, and not being in need of it. Yeah.
Saying all of that out loud, like what are you realizing it's time for you to let go of?
Well, it's making me really emotional.
Yeah, good. What's Do the this part. message Should we of the keep going? emotion? Raj,
Well,
how you doing? Raj, should we push it forward or what are you thinking?
Yeah, let's push it forward. I do want to make a quick observation for any of you that are watching this that sometimes are concerned about how do you show level 2 listening or that you are really focused and holding space. John, at one point I was like, I had to wait for you to blink. You were listening so intently and you were so focused. So I just want to call that out for anyone that wants to see a demonstration of just being truly present and in those levels of listening.
Yeah, I just led a sample training class this morning too, which is good for me because then I realized, oh, because everyone in the everyone in the organization is coach trained. My life partner is also coach trained. We have, I mean, seriously, everyone's already coach trained. So in some of these sample training classes, people are not coach trained. I realize, wow, there really is something to level 2 listening. Like, again, like, of course there is, but you know what I mean? It just like hits you again. But I think the thing is like, it's so second nature. I realize at this point, like coaches who coach for longer than a decade, especially if you hit the 3,000 mark at some point. I know, Raj, you're there too. I mean, it just feels like, I don't even know. It just feels so natural. And yet someone in this morning said, oh, it feels like magic. Like, how could you hear that? And you're like, oh, well, you can hear it because you're not filtering yourself anymore. There's no like, oh, I need to filter something with this. I'm just over there. So I'm listening to Heather. Like, Heather, I'm there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm in this space, and it's amazing even listening right now how much I can hear again. Listening level 2. I imagine you feel the same way. Like listening to yourself as a client in some ways. You feel that. Anyway, let's get it here, and then I jumped ahead 10 minutes. So for those who are in the training program, happy news, you can listen to the same, this demo recording from front to finish full. For those of you who are not listening along in the podcast, that's lovely. Join the program, get coach trained, do the world and yourself and everyone a favor. I know the coach training journey is amazing. You only get to do it once. Well, I guess you can do it more than once, but you know what I mean? It's a lovely thing to do. We're at the 21-minute mark right now. So let it go from here. And then that should give us time to finish this out and see how the aftermath played out too.
There's so many things that are so important to us that like we're not able to, because of like just where we live, finances, all that, like just everything, we weren't able to fully live a life that reflected those. And so we made the decision to come to Maine for slower paced life, and just for more time and space to work on the things that matter most to us. And it's so funny that I've moved all this way, and there is a bit of like natural slowness because of where we're at, but also I can feel myself wanting to go back into, I gotta keep going, like piling on the work, the tasks, like running at a really fast, hard pace. And I'm just realizing that it's hard for me to chill out. And I think the insight that God is wanting me to have I feel like there's a lot of insights. But I really think he desires for me to be free from this pressure to produce. And I'm like probably one of a million people that feel that. And that's also why I want to be a life coach, because I do love helping other people. And I think that not only do I want to, I know I don't have to have all my stuff together to be a coach or to be an effective coach in any way, shape, or form, but the things that I would be like hoping other people would do, or like coaching them toward, like, am I doing that myself? And yeah, so yeah, freedom from that pressure. And then also just staying true to myself. Like I just had spent so much time shaping, like defining my values, and then trying to intentionally create a lifestyle around those. And then, so I think I still need to like continue to mindfully protect those. I don't know. That's a good question that you asked. I'm probably gonna have to think about it for a while.
What do you notice when you all right. I was gonna say, let's guess the question. What question would you ask after that?
Wow.
Go ahead, Heather. What would you ask?
Yeah, Heather.
What would I ask? Oh wow. That is a good question. I'd probably ask something along the line of, what would happen if you took that pressure off yourself to produce? I'd be curious to hear that answer. What about you? Well, I guess we'll find out what you're
We'll find out what I do. I'll do a new one. Do you want to do one, Raj?
Yeah, I'm curious about this identity because I'm sensing conflict in there, right? This freedom, but I want to ask, like, who are you without the pressure to produce?
Oh, I love that one. Who are you without the pressure?
Yeah, that's really
goodness. Oh, yes. Yeah, there's something here. I mean, I think this is an opportunity where a lot of coaches talk about depth in a coaching relationship. Like, how do you get to that deep spot, right? And like when you're in it and all of a sudden you're here, it feels like there's so much here. Like it's almost too much here. How do you handle when there's so much depth to go through? Yeah, I mean, I like that question so much. Who are you without the pressure? I would go something where like, what happens when you sit and do nothing? Like, I think that's probably would go. Like, what happens when you would just for 10 seconds sit? What happens? That's probably where I would go. I'm most curious about. We'll see what I go through. So I say, what do you notice about? I'll go back just like 10 seconds if I can. There we go.
I don't know. That's a good question that you asked. I'm probably gonna have to think about it for a while.
What do you notice when you lean just a little more in that direction of releasing pressure, the self-judgment pressure?
Yeah. I think whenever I think about that, like it's almost like I imagine it, I definitely feel like a weight is lifted. And I feel like if I can like let go of that pressure to produce or to do or accomplish, I could likely also find a lot of what I'm hungry for internally, which is definitely like a closer connection to God and more in like the ability to recognize where the peace is leading me, and then also just being able to, and then it goes back to like what I'm doing for myself and how I'm helping others. I think I would have more clarity when it comes to those decisions, and it would be easier to, if my goal is not to like produce and then also to like just please other people, I think it would be easier to make better decisions regarding what I'm committing to, what I'm allowing to come into my life, what I'm choosing to work on, invest in. Yeah.
What's an action step or what's something that you want to test this in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah. I think a good challenge for me would be to take time throughout the day, even if it's like 5 minutes here and there, to like make myself stop. Like stop working, stop. Like even if I'm not working at my desk, like I'm cleaning, I'm like exercising, I'm cooking, like I'm just always looking for the next thing to do. And I think if I could just like make myself stop and do what I really, because in the back of my head, in the bottom of my heart, I'm like, I wish I was just sitting there like doing something good for my spirit or my heart. Like maybe it's reading a book or meditating or learning how to sit in silence. All these things that I think about, I talk about, I read about, but I never do. Or at least I don't do it nearly enough for it to become like a daily practice. And so
Mhm.
I think it's almost like challenging that pride that you mentioned of, yeah, like I don't have to keep doing this, and it's okay for me to like accept, like I mentioned earlier, like accept my limitations and know that like I can't and shouldn't be doing this to this extent. And yeah, and that's like the only way I can get that peace that will help me, that will guide me and lead me um throughout the day.
What do you want to call this perspective?
Hmm. Let's see. Um, I want to say the peaceful perspective, but that sounds so boring. Uh, or yeah, just simple. But maybe that's it. I mean, because that's what it feels like. It just feels like, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, letting go of all the rushing, the urgency, the unnecessary urgency. Like no one else is telling me you need to do this by this time. Like these are all things I put on myself. And like it would be really cool if I could take that pressure off,
Mhm.
tap into the peace.
Yeah. Raj, your thoughts? Like, how are you thinking?
I was thinking how much I love that perspective question, and also your ability to just be playful there with her, right? And that's a demonstration of how you can show character in here. You can play with a session. So once again, sometimes I get these questions in overviews: how much of myself can I bring in, or personality? So just wanted to call that out there. You were playing with it, and it was making Heather smile as she was playing with that as well. um, I am curious though, in terms of, I just want to hear what's going to happen next. Actually, I'm
I
going to stop
know, me
talking.
too. Me too. So I stopped it. It's that word boring. That's what I thought was funny.
Mm,
You're like, oh, it's peaceful perspective. Like, that sounds nice. Like, yeah, but it's so boring. Like, oh my
yeah,
goodness, you're still attached. Like,
there's
you know what I
so
mean?
much
Like,
there.
you're still attached to the. Yeah, they're your thoughts. This one.
My thoughts, oh boy, geez. There's still, like I mentioned last week, it's so emotional watching this back, but oh man, it's like I'm screaming, I'm a perfectionist and I need so much help. And yeah, I mean, since this session, I've had so many more revelations just about myself, and I'm constantly trying to get to the root of this attachment to pressure and busyness and all of that. But um, I don't know. I also just wanted to thank you for this space. Like you do such a good job with that as a coach, like the silence and the pausing to just let me process. Because sometimes it takes me a minute. And that's actually pretty normal for me. Like people ask me questions and I just need like a minute to think through things. Um, and so having that in a coach, I feel like is such a valuable thing. And I felt like you exemplified that really well. So embracing the pause and the silence.
Yeah, I like it too. Like as a coach too. Like it's the same. You know, it's almost like, whatever. I don't know where I got that metaphor of the sand and water, but it just feels like whenever a client is finished with answering, the sand just sort of settles and the water becomes clear again,
Mm.
if you gotta let it settle, when things settle, where does it land? Oh, I think what I am pushing for is a little more tangibility in the action step. But then the question is, well, how much do I go into that? Do I need to go into that? Because I feel like this session itself, the process that the session represents is already enough. But do I continue to push for more? I don't know. You know what I mean? That's where if we had multiple sessions as a coach, you get a sense of how much do you really need to push, or is this enough? There's some clients where I can trust, yeah, they got it. Action steps are going to happen. This is enough. Other clients, it's like, nope, we got to get some actions on the calendar. But I think as a client, you're being so generous. I'm still hearing attached to the pressure perspective. And I think as a coach, if I didn't hear it as much. I mean, I think I still hear it a little bit. And I think that's where I'm deciding right now. Like, I know we're up a time crunch. Do I keep pushing here, or do I just let this be? My sense is I probably just let this be, but I might have one more push in here. We'll see. How many more minutes do we have in this one?
Look at your face, John. Your face
I know.
shows that you know. Look at your face.
I know. That's exactly what's going on in my head right now.
It's right there. You're like, now what? I can sense
Mm,
the
mm.
attachment.
It
It's
was
written
that
all
word
over his
boring.
face.
That word boring got me. That's when I realized, oh my goodness, you're so attached to this. And it makes sense. I mean, our bodies, our whole beings are designed in this, in balance systems. We have one part of our bodies is always asking for rest. The other
Mm.
part of our body is always looking out for how can we do more? You know what I mean? So like those two have to make friends. And it feels like, okay, so how are we making friends? Yeah, all right. We'll finish this out. I feel it too. It's like, this push to do this, not even just once a day, but every hour.
Yeah.
How's it settling for you? Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be good. I actually just read, what was I reading? I don't know what I was reading or learning about. It was somewhere. I was learning about how important breaks are. Taking breaks. Oh, it was maybe in my health coach training, but and so I actually have started making myself, I haven't been sticking to it that well, but it's in my calendar. I have these like allotments for 30-minute breaks after 90 minutes to 2 hours of really focused work, but I think it could be even better to schedule like maybe something smaller and more frequently throughout the day, just as like, because I need those reminders more frequently, I think. I don't know.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because I truly do want that to be a practices of my life. And a lot of the great spiritual heroes and people that I look up to practice that really well. They have like the fixed hour installments of meditation, silence, prayer throughout the day, and it keeps them grounded as humans and like reminding them of like where their worth truly lies and what matters most in life. And I think that it would benefit me greatly. That's like a system of checks and balances for like what am I focused on here? Like, is my perspective how it needs to be, or like, am I focused on the right thing, or what state am I in?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like an hourly perspective check.
Yeah, that's a really,
There we
really
go.
good idea. I write it
How do we
down.
do on our session agenda?
I think we did really, really well. I'm writing down, you said hourly perspective check.
All right, Heather. The aftermath. How'd it go? I feel like now, like you got this. What's happened since?
Yeah, so I actually did set these reminders on my phone that would go off every hour. And it was basically, and I didn't have to like sit for 10 minutes. Like I wasn't going to try to be too hard on myself about what it should look like. But it was like when this goes off, I have to take, even if it's 1 minute, just to like check in with myself and remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. And honestly, like I said earlier, like chilling out. Um, I find myself, I can just get so like, and I'm sure this is a pretty normal thing. And it's not bad. Like I care deeply about my work. I care deeply about all the things that I do because I want to do really well in my work or like as a mother, as a wife, but it's just even, and I said the word worth in there. Like I can't attach my worth to any of these things in this moment. And I was actually on a walk yesterday and or the other day, I don't know. I was listening to a podcast and it was about running. I love running, and I was listening to this other runner talk, and they were like, "I'm just so scared that if I never do another race, like no one will ever love me again, or like they won't respect me, or like I have to keep racing and pushing myself in order to keep getting people's approval." Or all that. And I was like, God, that sounds like me. It sounds like like if I never ran a long run again, or if I never achieved this pace, or if I never did this in my career, if I never made like, do I still know that like I'm lovable and like acceptable? And no, those things have nothing to do with what I have, what's on my resume or what's on my Strava account or my Instagram, or, like all of that. That's just not what matters. So yeah, so those reminders really helped. And I did start to see quite a bit of growth and even just more awareness, like when I'm in, because sometimes I can just go through the rush of the day without even realizing it, but then like just checking in like on myself to understand, be more aware of like the state that I'm in. Like, hey, are you freaked out? Are you freaking out right now? Because your task is so long, or are you actually like calm and at peace and like knowing that everything will work out as it should and you can do your best and that's enough. Um, so yeah, and then since then I've also just had a lot of realizations about, yeah, like you said, that attachment to pressure, like that attachment to uh or really trying to just get that or grow through that or identify the root cause of, yeah, like the ceaseless need to accomplish. Yeah, I don't know if all of that makes sense, but
Mhm. Totally. I mean, it reminds me, I mean, a lot of, I mean, just the structure and power of prayer to have the ability just to stop and to connect with source and to, I mean, different religions, different cultures throughout the world have different structures to keep humans in connection.
yeah.
And I mean, from a positive psychology standpoint, if you're going that direction, I mean, it's called gratitude. The ability to be grateful at any moment, at any time, you tap into gratitude and things happen. It's amazing when all of those things start to really line up.
Mm.
And that's what it feels like here. It feels like, oh my goodness, like you're wrestling with like core motivation, personality, with spirituality, with you have a whole life. And there are things that need to happen too. And that's, yeah, I mean, it just feels to me like you're in it. And I think a session like this where you are working with a core motivation, okay, how am I how am I taking ownership of my worth in the sense of like my ownership of my perspective of my worth in connection to God and spirit and all of that. Like that's what I feel like is really happening at play here. Uh, I mean, it's a privilege to be able to walk with you in this space, and then to share it and to say, yeah, this is how, like, this is what's possible as a coach. You can do this.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge you, Heather, for just your openness and realness and being vulnerable. And I just want to share, it reminds me, as you said, I'm sure you said right at the beginning, I'm sure lots of people, I'm sure millions of people go through this. And I actually have a book on my coffee table called Niksen, Niksen, and it's the Dutch art of doing nothing. So as I was listening to you, it kind of reminded me of that, right? Because I have to walk past that and see it. So if anyone's interested, I just wanted to share the concept of Niksen. And also, as I was listening to you, it reminded me of a client who had created an affirmation for themselves. If it's all right for me to share that with you.
Love to hear.
And the affirmation was, I deserve to be loved for who I am, not just for what I do. So as I was listening to you, is reminding myself too, who, you know, can get addicted to that productivity. And when you have your own business, John, you know that, right? The achievement and so many things that need to happen. But thank you, Heather. It was a real pleasure. And John, thank you for sharing just those beautiful moments of coaching. I love the way you close the loop even at the end. You know, you never forget to do that effortlessly, just closing the loop on the session as well. As we close out today, is there anything you want to add, John?
Just thank you, Heather. It's lovely to have a client willing to go to this depth and to share. It really is helping other coaches and other people see what's possible with coaching and moving the field forward. So thank you for that. Really, truly.
Thank you for the opportunity. This was so good. And yeah, really enjoyed it. Very powerful. So
thank you, Heather. Thank you, John. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Please, any coaches, if you want to submit a recording, doesn't matter what level it's at, John and I would love to hear it. We will be back next week with more demos. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
yes, thanks again.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks.